Why?
Let me get my, because all my uni notes are also in here.
You got to prioritise. This is more important.
Hello and welcome back to the channel.
To the sofa.
At the sofa set.
Yes.
This is specially built for this channel. So
I've had to give up a whole
appreciate it.
room for it, so appreciate my commitment.
We're here talking about legends of both progressive rock in one of their eras and synth pop in another one of their eras, Genesis. Words can't really describe how influential and important they are as a band, spanning from their debut in 1969 to their final album in 1997, 15 albums to rank. What was your familiarity going in?
I mainly just knew singles from the 80s,
Yeah.
so that was pretty much it. I'd never heard a full album going in. I really only knew the big tracks, things that would be played on the radio stations that I would listen to, so really whatever informed my 80s bias, that's all I really knew about Genesis going in. What about you?
Well, I knew Foxtrot. That was the only album, so I'm the only one of us who knew the studio album, but I feel like you had the archive collection, didn't you? So I feel like you knew more songs than I did.
Maybe.
Because Foxtrot only has 6 songs. But I knew Foxtrot, and then I knew the odd song here and there, which I'll point to when we get to them. One song from a few of the different albums.
Yeah.
And my dad, one of his favourite albums is And Then There Were Three. So I have heard, I think, half of that album before, but a lot of it kind of passed me by at the time. So we'll see. We'll see about that. So
Right.
You're going first.
Am I? Oh my word.
Because I went first for the last 2.
Oh, okay. Right, I'm kicking off this list with, at number 15, Nursery Crime.
Oh my goodness, okay.
Oh. Right, that has just thrown everything out the window. Right, every prediction that I've made about you, disregard all others. Okay, Nursery Crime was not enjoyable to me. It's a 5. The sound is just a little bit too obnoxious for me. I didn't get much out of the album. I got a few songs like The Musical Box, Rabs and Friends, The Return of the Giant Hogweed, and Seven Stones. Those are the takeaways from me. Everything else, in my opinion, can be forgotten. I really did not appreciate this album, especially having heard a few that I did quite like before this. Are you okay?
Mm-hmm. Everything's fine.
It's Elliott Smith all over again. Overall, by far not the best Genesis album by a country mile. They've already done better than this at this point in their discography, and they go on to do better. So unfortunately, it's here. It's at 5. It's not a total hateful album. I don't hate it.
You picked out 4 of the 7 tracks, so that's not terrible.
Yeah, but the
Absent
other
Friends is only like a minute long or something.
the others are I was grasping, really. Those are the songs that I could potentially listen to again, but we'll see how that actually pans out in practice. That's about as much as I have to say about Nursery Crime. I don't want to go in too deep now because
I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that's going to kill you for that, but that's fine.
well, at least I'm a silent member of the VC, so I'll stay here.
So my
and
number
hide
15,
away.
I'm sane. So my number 15... My number 15 is obviously Calling All Stations.
Oh!
Like, obviously it's Calling All Stations.
Alright.
Oh dear, okay. What are you going to do? This is one of the most boring, bland, pointless, forgettable, unnecessary wastes of an hour of my life. It's a 3 out of 10. I think it's actually almost irredeemable. I think there is nothing to like here. Ray Wilson sounds like a Bono tribute act, and you lose Phil Collins and you replace him with 2 drummers, neither of which are that exciting. I didn't know any tracks that I liked because there weren't any, although Congo is complete dross and I hate it. So I noted that one. I absolutely hate Calling All Stations. So it's number 15.
That is probably the most damning review that we've done on the show, or anyone has done on your show so far.
I don't think it will get much worse. I like being, you know me, I like being positive about music.
Yeah.
That was horrific. I hated every second of it. So, Calling All Stations by number 15. Frankly, I don't think it should count because there's only 2 Genesis members on it. Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks.
I can almost agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I can almost agree with you on that. I will touch on that a bit later. Yeah, it's not going to be immediate, I'm afraid.
God, okay.
It's not my number 14.
Okay.
This is... Oh my god. This is... Wow. Okay. It's actually going to... What I could gather, Tom, this is going to get a lot worse.
Oh dear.
Because my number 14 is Foxtrot. Slightly better than Nursery Crime. I've given it a 6. So...
I mean, you're getting to a 6 quick.
Where we're at, your number 15 was a 3, my number 15 was a 5. So I think I've got more out of Genesis than you have. So Nursery... Look, Foxtrot's okay. Right, I'm not going to say anything as damning about it as Nursery Crime. I don't think I was that vehement about Nursery Crime, to be honest, but I didn't particularly
Compared to my
enjoy
review.
it. Compared to your review, I feel a lot better now you spoke so poorly about Calling All Stations about my review of Nursery Crime. Foxtrot's okay. And it was a 7 until Supper's Ready.
Yeah.
Which is okay in parts. It's just too long. It's just too long. I can't be doing with a 20-minute song. That was... But okay, so Supper's Ready has merit for what it's done. Mm-hmm. But I just have not got the attention span to listen to a 20-minute song again. And so that's why it's 6. But I enjoyed Watcher of the Skies, Timetable, Get 'Em Out by Friday, and Can Utility and the Coastliners.
So pretty much the A-side you liked.
Yeah. It definitely a front-loaded album. And Supper's Ready, I didn't really note it, but it exists, and for the fact that they made a 20-minute song, I have to give credit for. Just not on my time, thanks.
Well, I was feeling quite bad about my list in terms of how it would affect you, but now I don't feel bad at all. Because my number 14 is Invisible Touch, which I gave a 4. I think
I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed.
I mean, come on, you know me.
Yeah,
this is not my sound.
I knew it wouldn't be up there for you.
I think the problem with it, I will say 80s Genesis I got more out of than I thought I would.
Right.
But this album, I don't like the sound. I don't think the songs are all that memorable. I don't like In Too Deep. I think it's a bit insipid. I do like the title track. I think that's a good way to open. I don't like anything she does. I think this is like concentrated the stuff that I don't like about Phil Collins. It's very sappy and like it feels quite fake to me. It isn't very genuine. And I also, there's like some long songs on this album, and without Steve Hackett, I don't think Mike Rutherford, he pulls it off sometimes. He's a good guitarist. But for those sort of 10-minute songs, he doesn't have the same sort of... The Hackett-Banks dynamic I really enjoyed for the longer songs, and that'll be reflected in my list, with the interplay between them. And I just think that Rutherford, he's a really good bassist and he's a pretty good guitarist, but for a 10-minute song, there's a couple on this album and they just didn't grab my attention at all. So, it's a 4. It's going to get better soon. But Invisible Touch was another one where I was not enjoying it at all. So
we knew this would happen.
Yeah.
We are two people of very different eras, and Genesis spanning across those eras and being very identifiable within both. We knew we were going to have a bit of a...
I had a feeling that both Foxtrot and Nursery Crime would be near the bottom. I didn't think they'd be at the very bottom, but that's fine. So Invisible Touch is my number 14, and I know that Sam is going to be talking about that much later.
How much later? We'll see.
Yeah.
My number 13, still at a 6, is Wind and Wuthering, which was less offensive, but just a little bit bland. I can't really identify much from it. It's got a similar problem to me than that A Broken Frame had for you, in that I can't really remember the songs from it. I wrote down One for the Vine, What Gorilla, and Unquiet Slumbers for the Sleepers. Right. But apart from that, I mean, I can barely remember those, in all honesty. Now that I've finished the 15-album discography, I can't really remember them very well, but those were just the best of a bad situation to me. I didn't really think the album was particularly worth it. But yeah, it's not. That's why it's got a little bit higher up. Is it's not particularly dreadful, in as much that it's forgettable. So it's a 6. It's the same as Foxtrot, for different reasons.
That one doesn't offend me as much, so that's good.
Yeah, good. We're getting there.
Speaking of offending people, I want to make a sincere apology to Clayton Kelly because my number 13 is Abacab. Now, love you, Clay, by the way. Thanks for watching all the videos and all that kind of stuff. I will say, 80s Genesis, there are 4 albums. I think 2 of them are quite good. 2 of them not so good. So we're not just going to be rolling through the 80s, don't worry. The other 2 80s albums are going to show up a bit higher.
Right.
Abacab is probably the most processed sounding album that they've got. It's very 1981.
Yeah.
You know?
It's quite hard.
Yeah, it's drenched in the 80s. I think it's one of the few times their music sounds messy, because I feel like because they're such great musicians, they rarely make something that sounds messy, but because of the horrible synth sounds and the production, I don't like the title track that much. However, unlike Invisible Touch and Calling All Stations, this has a song that I really, really like, and that is No Reply at All. I think that's a great song. Great big bombastic horns on it, which is very me. Really catchy. I think it's a bit of an underwhelming musical direction after the couple albums that came before this.
Yeah.
It feels a bit safe, but also like doesn't pull off what it's trying to do. Whodunit's crap. That's all I'm going to say.
We'll come to it when I.
And then another record closes the album, and the hook of that song is Put Another Record On. And I wanted to be honest. And yeah, I think the songs are either poorly aged, clumsy synth pop, or inoffensive background music on this album, apart from No Reply at All, which did get it up to a 5. So I think it's quite inoffensive. If it was on, I wouldn't rush to turn it off, which I might do with my bottom 2. Yeah. Maybe not. No, I probably would with Invisible Touch. But yeah, Abacab is my number 13. I think it's...
And it's 5.
It's fine. It's okay. It's
Right.
inoffensive.
Wow.
I will probably not think about it much again.
Right. So now we can tell already. I think I probably like Genesis a little bit more than you, because now we're at a point where I can get through these albums.
Yeah.
We've done those 3 at the bottom that I just didn't like.
Yeah.
And now we're at ones where I'm like, these are okay. These are good. So now we're at points where I in theory, shouldn't offend anyone, because I'm like, these are all pretty good, unless you really don't like
the damage is done.
Okay, well, then I have nothing to lose. At number 12, we're in a 7, and it's Trick of the Tail.
Interesting.
Not
Okay.
bad.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
It was the first one with Phil Collins doing the vocal, and so it was quite interesting for that reason. The sound is a little bit different to what I like, but there were actually some songs there that I did enjoy, such as Squonk, Ripples, and Los Endos. I also added the self-titled, the titular song, the Dance on a Volcano, Entangled, but they're not as good as the other 3 in my opinion. Overall, relatively good listening experience. It's still very, I think, identifiably Genesis up until this point in their discography. Obviously, Peter Gabriel is missing, you can tell. And as you may have gathered, there's still a few Peter Gabriel ones for me to name, and they will come up a bit later on in the list, not immediately. So that's where I'm at with Trick of the Tail. Not their best, but by no means their worst. We're at a point now where I could enjoy these albums. So that's where I'm at.
Still no Calling All Stations.
Still no Calling All Stations.
Oh, okay.
And I will talk about Calling All Stations when we get there, okay?
So, my number 12, another one I suspect you might have higher. I don't know. This one was hard to predict for you.
Right.
But it's We Can't Dance is my number 12. Then from 1991, their 14th album. I actually think it opens quite strong. I like No Son of Mine. I like Jesus, He Knows Me. And I like Driving the Last Spike. I think those are all great songs. I think Driving the Last Spike, there's the chorus, They'll Never See the Likes of Us Again. I think would be a great way for the band to just, we'll do a 3-song EP, and that'll be the final song. And then because it's just a great note. It just sums them up. It's nice. There's a more organic sound to this one, less synth, more organic drums, which I like. And then after those first three songs, it kind of falls off a bit for me. I Can't Dance is not great. Tell Me Why is quite Supertramp-esque, which I will say, that's another thing I will say multiple times throughout this. But yeah, I think similar to Invisible Touch, it's sort of a bit too backgroundy for me. It's a bit like elevator music, music they play at a cafe that no one's going to be offended by, but it's going to be on. And, I think it gets a 6. So we're moving swiftly up the numbers. So we've gone 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's decent. I probably could listen to it again. Would I want to? Probably not. But those first 3 songs, No Son of Mine, Jesus He Knows Me, and Driving the Last Spike, really good. So that's what separates it from the bottom 3. It has a few highlights that I really did enjoy. So now is when I start to get a bit more positive after this one.
Oh, good. Well, that's interesting because hopefully I can bring you back on side here.
Okay.
Because my number 11 is Calling All Stations.
Thank God.
Right. Let me explain, okay? It falls short because it's a Genesis album.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Genesis.
No.
No way is it Genesis.
Yeah.
If it was not attached to that name, still wouldn't be fab, but there's something of value there. I don't think Ray Wilson is that bad. No way is he a successor to Peter Gabriel or Phil Collins. But the reason why I've put it this high is because I just want to say it's not the worst thing in the world. Tom disagrees, but I do think it's quite offensive in terms of how loud it is. It opens with Calling All Stations, which is very heavy. But it's just not the worst thing. I've had a lot of time with that song. It's on Archive.
If I had to pick a song that I could listen to again, it'd be that one.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. But I do think that because it goes so hard, it could put you off. It's not Genesis. No. It doesn't sound like Genesis to me. You mentioned Congo, which is definitely not the best on the album. I don't think it's the worst. I think it's fine. It's fine, right? It's okay. It's not good. I'm not gonna mention it again, but it's fine. Shipwrecked I thought was okay.
Yeah, that one I can hum, so that's a good sign.
I thought that was a
very Sam
song. Yeah, and also the closer, One Man's Fool. I thought it's a 10-minute song, but actually it's quite nice. But I'm kind of dissociating it from Genesis because it's just not what made Genesis good. But I just can't, in all good conscience, let it go without saying it's okay. And if it wasn't Genesis, I think you could find more value in it. If you didn't think about the fact that it's the end of a legendary discography, then maybe you could see some merit in it.
And you've put it above some heavy hitters.
I have. That's why it's so high, but also why it's so low in my list. Because it says it's Genesis and it's not.
Right, okay. Speaking of albums that say they're Genesis, my number 11 is From Genesis to Revelation. The debut.
We've almost synced up.
Oh, is it your number 10?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to it then.
Yeah.
What I find... See, this album is good. I've got it as 7. So we're not going to keep going up every album. We're going to be at 7 for a bit. But you know what? First things first, this album does not sound good. It's not well recorded. It sounds very messy, which is not what you associate with Genesis.
No.
But the songs are good, I think. I think there's some good sort of 60s pop style songwriting. No Hackett, no Collins. Gabriel is very much not Peter Gabriel yet. He's not found his sort of niche. His niche, yeah. And I think there are some good songs here. I like Where the Sour Turns to Sweet. I like Fireside Song. And especially In the Wilderness, I think is a really catchy song. I think it's a pretty good listen. Again, similar to what you've just said, might be better regarded if it was under a different name than Genesis.
Yeah.
And it would definitely be better regarded if they recorded it properly, because it doesn't sound like it's been recorded very professionally at all.
Yeah.
So it could have been better if more time and effort was put into it. It sounds a bit rushed to me. And there's some weird, I don't know, just the production of the sound was a bit strange. So, yeah, it's my number 11. I think it's good. I would probably listen to it again.
Yeah.
But it is very much an outlier in the discography.
So, yeah, From Genesis Revelation is my number 10, and it's also a 7. So we're clearly thinking of it as... I was pleasantly surprised.
Finally, some common ground.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised
Yeah.
that it was actually worth a listen.
Mm.
Because I thought first album, recorded by teenagers, it's probably not going to be what we consider proper Genesis. However, it's still pretty good, and yeah, you're right. It's unfortunate that it's going by Genesis because it's not what anyone knows and loves about Genesis.
Mm.
But it's still good. I've saved loads of songs from it, and I enjoyed Am I Very Wrong? I enjoyed A Place to Call My Own. The opener, Where the Salto Suite, really nice way of getting in, and it definitely put me at ease listening to the rest of the album. I thought, this is going to be okay. But yeah, the quality isn't fantastic. It's definitely got some, like, teething troubles with them recording their debut. But ultimately, it's worth it, and that's how come it's managed to make the top 10, and how come it's managed to beat Calling All Stations.
Among others.
Among others.
So
I know I'm committing crimes, okay? But you know what? I'm just owning it.
Yeah. So my
I
number...
have to.
We're going to enter my top 10 now.
Right.
And I am going to mention an album you have already mentioned, one of your crimes, so I might be with you on this one.
Right.
It's Wind and Wuthering, which I kind of agree with a lot of what you said about. As you can see, my reaction was less vivid to this one.
not as animated.
It's the last album with Steve Hackett, and fair play to him. He leaves it on a bang. I think it's one of his better guitar albums. I think his playing on this album is fantastic. However, this is definitely one of their weakest songwriting albums. Like you said, not particularly memorable. I actually noted What Gorilla is the one song that kind of offended my ears a little bit. Felt a bit pointless. I think this is their first step into the synth-heavy sound, because Trick of the Tail, like you said, is still sort of rooted in the sound of Selling Them by the Pound and those kind of albums. And this album is sort of the step towards the 80s rather than into the 80s. I think Afterglow is a nice closer, but it's not particularly memorable. And I think the problem with this album is that by now the formula is a bit stale of what they've been doing, and they really needed to switch it up, which they did on the following album.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think their move into pop was earned, and this album, people like this album. It's not, I never see it top 5, but it's usually higher than we've had it. So
yeah,
I think it's good, but ultimately a bit superfluous to a Genesis listening package.
Yeah, and it's out the way for both of us now.
Yeah.
My number 9, not too far away from you. It's We Can't Dance.
Okay.
Which I was not expecting to like going in, because I Can't Dance is one of those songs that I've had an association with for a long time, and it's not been a pleasant one. I don't like I Can't Dance. I think it's a bit of a rubbish song. But it actually surprised me, because I thought it would just be more of the same with I Can't Dance, but no, it's good. No Son of Mine and Jesus He Knows Me I also knew, and they're pretty alright. I also say Driving the Last Spike, Dreaming While You Sleep, Tell Me Why, Hold On My Heart, I think is a beautiful song. And I also say Way of the World Since I Lost You and Fading Lights. So I found a lot of value in it. But ultimately, I think that the sound just was not on point.
It's too long as well, isn't it?
It is also too long. I just think they kind of lost their way, in my opinion. But I do think that they put in an effort, and I think it shows. Which is why it's climbed a little bit higher on the list, and I was pleasantly surprised, and it's a 7. I thought I wouldn't like it, because I thought I Can't Dance is a great... Jesus He Knows Me is a good song, but it's, I think, a little bit... It's not... I don't think it's particularly Genesis, but I think...
The album isn't really.
No,
as a whole.
but this is definitely, we see the decline in them, leading on to Calling All Stations. But yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It exists, and I probably could listen to it again. Whether I'd want to is another thing. But it was a half decent listening experience.
So, I'm gonna have to make another apology. This is one of my dad's all-time favourite albums. And Then There Were Three at number 9. Sam looks surprised. Yeah, I mentioned the Hackett Rutherford thing. I think I'm much more of a Steve Hackett fan than you are.
Yeah.
I play guitar, maybe that comes into it as an appreciation for his playing.
You missed him.
Yeah, a little bit on this album. Less so as it went on, because they sort of, maybe it was Tony Banks taking over a little bit more, and Mike Rutherford sort of figuring out what he's good at guitar-wise. But tell you what, the good stuff on this album is great. Undertow. was one of the songs I knew going in. Love it. Ballad of Big. Love it. Follow You, Follow Me. Love it.
Great song.
3 absolute stone cold bangers. May or may not show up in the songs list. The rest of the album, like, there's nothing bad on here. There's nothing that makes me go, there's no whodunit. But to me, I don't know, I mentioned Supertramp before. This sort of feels like a lesser version of an album like Even in the Quietest Moments, or like Crisis What Crisis, where it's sort of remnants of progressive rock, but heading more into the pop sound. And I would just rather listen to something by Supertramp than this album. I still think it's good. It's a 7. Again, the length, I think from Foxtrot onwards, most of their albums are 50 minutes or longer. And a lot of the time there is a song, at least, that you could just pull out. This one, there wasn't necessarily one song, but the whole vibe, kind of, the second half especially, was a bit rough for me. But then it ends on Follow You, Follow Me, which is a nice sort of pick-me-up at the end. So, good album. 7 out of 10. I like it.
Very good. I'm going to surprise you now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to apologise to Clayton.
Oh!
Abacab is at number 8.
Right, okay.
I very much agree with what you've said about it. And I think, it was a bit messy. The sound was a bit too severe for me. Whodunit is garbage. And it just didn't deserve to climb up the list. And as I was listening to the songs to work out my list, it's actually gone down and it's been swapped with an album. The next album, it's gone from 7 to 8.
Yeah.
So it's gone. It's just not the best. And I'm an 80s guy, and I don't think it was the best the 80s had to offer. Obviously, the 80s ones haven't come up much yet, but we'll see where my loyalties lie there. Abacab just was not where I want to be. I wanted to like it, I promise, but I couldn't, in all good conscience, rank it in the top half. It's okay. There's some good songs on it. I didn't mind the titular song, Me and Sarah Jane. Other than that, I can't really remember it very well, apart from the really awful ones. So yeah, that's where we're at. But we're still at a 7, so I'm still kind of ranking.
Yeah, we're both in 7 zone.
Yes, the 7 zone's a big zone for me as well.
My number 8 is also a 7. A pleasant surprise, and it's the self-titled from 1983. Coming directly off Abacab, I liked And Then There Were Three. I haven't mentioned Duke yet, so I like Duke. Abacab came and I thought, this is the beginning of the end. And thankfully, Genesis, the self-titled, I think it's a good album, especially the A-side. Yeah. I think it opens really strong. Mama, great vocal performance by Phil. That's All is so Tom. I love it. It's like they wrote a song just for me. It's sort of like a throwback to the 60s pop, but with the synth. I love it.
It's a good song.
And then I love the duet of Home by the Sea and Second Home by the Sea. I think that works really nicely.
Yep.
Legal Alien is a bit embarrassing, but it's still better than Whodunit.
Yes.
It's more fun, it's catchier, it's more memorable, and it's easier to listen to. And then I think the rest of the B-side is just a bit forgettable, but I think this album has a great sound. Contrast to From Genesis to Revelation, this is really well recorded. It sounds pristine. Maybe Phil's best vocal album, I would say. I think he sounds great. I think
it's valid.
One could say about the first two, I guess I haven't mentioned Trick of the Tail yet, but that and Wind and Withering, he's still kind of replicating Peter Gabriel. And I think by this album, he's really found his voice and he's really belting out these ballads, and I think he's doing a really good job of it. So the self-title comes in at number 8. Pleasant surprise. I did enjoy it. Yeah,
it was a surprise for me as well, but we'll get to that. My number 7, my reaction maybe gave away well, it didn't really give away much, because my number 7 is And Then There Were Three. So I didn't rank it that much higher than you.
You thought I would rank it higher though?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That was really all there was. But we are getting to the higher end of the 7s. If I was still in halves, if I was still doing things as halves, this would be a 7.5.
Yeah.
But we're not, so it's not. And Then There Were Three I thought was pretty good. I quite liked the transition over to the Phil Collins era, as you can probably guess by my ranking. But I didn't think it was the best. I think it was quite a consistent album, but sometimes a little bit too slow for my liking. Undertow, you're right, great song. I liked Say It's Alright, Joe. I thought that was quite nice. I thought the slow worked there. And Follow You, Follow Me is just... not going to say too much. It may or may not come up in the songs video. Where,
check that out.
But yeah, so go and watch that if you want me to talk about Follow You, Follow Me. I'm not going to give away too much here, but that's picked up the album. And I think it was all right. And we're definitely getting to the point now where I am quite enjoying it.
Is that still a 7?
Still a 7, but high 7, 7.5 if we were still doing halves, but we're not. It's not worth rounding up, but it's definitely the top tier 7, if you like.
So that suggests that your next may be an 8. Interesting. Or maybe not.
Or maybe not, we'll see.
So my number 7, I'm in 8 land now. So I started lower than you.
Oh, right. So, but now I'm kind of dragging behind.
And as you may have noticed, I've only mentioned one album with Peter Gabriel singing.
So we guess your loyalties.
That is going to change now, because my number 7 is Trespass, which is the second album, which I think is a really nice album. I think when I first listened to it, I thought it was going to end up higher, because I didn't really know what I was getting into with the later stuff.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, because I thought, wow, this is really pretty, really pastoral, really sort of, I don't know, it's a nice... I haven't listened to it on Nature Walk, but I feel like it'd be a nice album for a nature walk.
Yeah.
Especially the first half. I like Looking for Someone, Visions of Angels, and White Mountain, all great songs. I think the piano on here is really nice, especially from Tony Banks. I mean, it always is. He's an incredible player. But I think this album really shines because Anthony Phillips is a good guitarist. If I had to rank them, it would go Hackett, Phillips, Rutherford, I think, as guitarists. But I think the one thing is that... Again, I love that Hackett Banks dynamic. It adds so much to the sound to me, even though they hated each other. I think that's kind of an interesting... Yeah, so I think Phillips does a good job here. They almost split after he left the band, which I find very interesting. And I'm glad they didn't, because there was better stuff to come, to be honest. I think it's a consistent album. It's strong from start to finish. Even if it isn't very dynamic and it gets a little bit samey. It's a little bit inconsequential.
Yeah.
But I still give it an 8. I think it's strong. I would happily listen to this again on a nature walk or something. It's a nice vibe. If you just want a chill album, I think this is a really good one. I think Peter Gabriel, like I said, hadn't really found himself on the debut.
No.
He's starting to come into his own a bit here.
But it's still a bit like that,
timid,
isn't it?
a bit timid. But I think it's a really pretty album, and I don't know. It's nice. Trespass is my number 7.
Fair, yeah. We're still in the 7 land. This is the last of the 7 land now, in number 6. I'm worried you haven't brought up Nursery Crime yet. My number 6 is Selling England by the Pound.
Okay.
It's a 7, high 7.
Yeah.
Good sound. I enjoyed it. Everything else for me, we're going to the 8s and 9s after this. So it was just, from 5 upwards, I loved them.
Yeah.
So this is the last one that I say I really liked as opposed to love. I haven't got anything bad to say about it by any means.
It's less your vibe,
it's just,
isn't it?
it's just the way it is. You know, I enjoyed Dancing with the Moon at Night. I know what I like, for instance, in Your Wardrobe. More Fool Me was a really nice song. Battle of Epping Forest was interesting in a good way. The Cinema Show I liked a lot, and I finish off my playlist with Isle of Plenty. It's a good album. I recommend it. It being in number 6 is not a testament to how bad it is, but rather how good Genesis are, in my opinion.
It's funny to me that the one song you didn't mention is Firth of Fifth. I guess we'll get to that.
I saved it in my playlist, but I wasn't a standout for me.
Yeah. So, number 6, predictors have predicted me to have this very high, but it's not even top 5. Trick of the Tail is my number 6, which may be slightly surprising.
A little bit. Just misses out top 5. Because
if you know anything about me, we talked about this in Roxy Music, I love the blend between the commercial and the experimental. If stuff's a bit too experimental, sometimes I can be put off. If stuff's a bit too commercial, as Invisible Touch found out the hard way, I can be quite bored. Trick of the Tail, the first album without Peter Gabriel. The thing is about this is that I do like this album a lot, but I'm going to list a lot of problems I have with it because I want to love this. There's a lot of stumbling blocks. I think, again, it's bogged down by length, and I think the highs are so high. I think Collins fills in well here, but one song aside, which I'll get to on the songs video, I won't reveal that yet. One song aside, it really does feel like he's filling in still for Peter Gabriel, and he hasn't found himself. I feel like the album could have been better sequenced, because A problem I have with this album is on the A side, it feels like every song is competing. There's no room to breathe. Every song is this big ballad that's like trying to tug at your heartstrings. And like I'll talk about with some of the other albums, sometimes you just need a shorter song to just let yourself breathe after something quite long and emotional. That said, I think this has 3 of the best Genesis songs: Entangled, Ripples, and the title track. I think that's the reason I like the title track, is because it's a fun pop song in the middle of all these big, powerful ballads. And I think it's sort of the fact that it's not taking itself too seriously is quite nice in this album. I think, great playing all around, and again, Tony Banks and Steve Hackett, love them. So
it's still working for you.
Trick of the Tail's my number 6.
Interesting. Right, top 5 territory. We made our predictions privately.
I've got quite a bit wrong.
It's interesting. We're in 8 land now. My number 5 is one you've not long mentioned in your list, and is Trespass.
Okay.
Which, I really enjoyed it, and it stayed at the top of the list for quite a while I was listening. Obviously, as you can tell, by process of elimination, some albums that come quite a bit later on pushed it down. That being said, I thought it was a really enjoyable listen, and I was very pleasantly surprised. Looking for someone as a good way to open, I really liked White Mountain, and I also say Stagnation, Dusk, and the Knife. It was a very pleasant experience to listen to it. I think you're right. I think it's definitely a song to listen to in nature. I think you're right. Peter Gabriel, he's finding his place, but he hasn't got the confidence in it yet. So it's quite timid in that respect. But I really
did prefer the timidity over his boisterousness.
But there's still one left from Peter Gabriel after this. We'll see where that lands. Trespass is it's an enjoyable album. I think it's not identifiably Genesis yet, but it's definitely getting there. They're definitely finding their feet more with this than with Genesis to Revelation. So I gotta give it props for that so early on in their career, and with so much still to prove as we find out. I think Trespass is definitely worth the listen, and I recommend it highly. It's not made it into medal position, but that's because I really did love what's in medal position. So
we mostly agree on that album, I think.
Yeah.
So my number 5, of course, Sam had 2 very contentious albums at the bottom. You can half breathe a sigh of relief, because Foxtrot is my number 5.
Right.
That's a half sigh of relief if I've ever seen one.
That was that.
Yeah. Now this was the only one I'd heard.
Something else is very high.
It was the only one I'd heard going in.
Yeah.
And it made my 1972 list, which sort of gave away that I liked it, at least.
Yeah.
It's an 8. I think this is an album of not two sides, because I love Watcher of the Skies and Timetable. The other 3 songs on the A side are okay. And Supper's Ready is a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. And I kind of like it. I admire it and I respect it.
Yeah, so do I.
And there's of the 23 minutes, there's about 15 minutes of it that I love. Especially the last 4 minutes where Peter does the Take Me to the New Jerusalem. It's so powerful.
I like
and it's almost worth sitting through the whole thing just for that. Almost.
If you've got the time.
And I think it will show up on my songs list. I'll give that away now.
Okay.
Because it won't be very high though. But I feel like it deserves, I knew you wouldn't mention it, and it deserves to be mentioned because it is a feat, is one of the most impressive things they've done.
Yeah.
And most of it is really enjoyable. Like I said, Watch the Skies and Timetable are great.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think the problem with both this album and Supper's Ready, hearing the whole thing in full is a bit daunting because it is very varied and very expansive, which is
felt that
we'll talk about with another couple albums we'll get to. It's also the first time I've mentioned the classic lineup, which only lasted for 4 albums, so I've got 4 of them in the top 5. So I feel like the very best is yet to come, but I think this is the beginning.
Yeah.
Unless you want to mark Trespass as the beginning. Yeah, no, the Trespass is the beginning.
Trespass is good.
Yeah. So it's sort of carrying on what has been started, and it's an 8. I think it's really good. Very medieval and mystical and cool vibe. So
What's interesting is we've still got 2 albums that
yeah,
are in our top 4. We do have 2
Mhm.
albums that we're sharing, which is interesting,
yeah,
to say the
more
least.
than I thought we would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I thought we just
Yeah.
totally switched. But no, but this may be the deal breaker on that one. So I just wanted to mark it before I say my number 4, because it's The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. That's my number 4.
Are you sure about that being a deal breaker?
Oh, maybe. We'll see. We'll see.
Interesting.
The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is definitely one of the most interesting albums that they put out because of its concept, because it's got a storyline, and that got me invested enough to make it through the hour and a half that it is.
Yeah.
Because I really admired that. I think a concept album is so difficult.
Ambitious, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, you know what? If they're doing this, let's do this. It's like I almost considered it like a movie, like I was settling down for a film, but it was only in the audio medium. And I really do admire that. And I was invested. I was following along. I was saving a lot of the songs, so I can't list them all. The ones that I lie down. You're just gonna have to wait and see which ones make it into the songs video. Because spoiler alert, some of them do. It's really good. It's if you think of it like that, it's definitely worth a listen. It's basically like a film but without the visual element. Didn't make medal position because ultimately you can tell where my loyalties are, right? I'm an 80s guy. You can tell by the process of elimination the 80s albums are left. So, however, you can also tell that it was number 1 for me for quite a while.
Yeah.
It's a good album, and I think that the ambition that they had putting that together was great. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is where Peter Gabriel leaves.
Yes.
Yeah. What a way to leave. What a way to slam the door on Genesis and show that you've got more to offer.
Yeah.
And I do think that this is Peter Gabriel at his best in the band. And yeah, I feel really excited to talk about it because it's a good album. It's definitely solid, and it just shows what Peter Gabriel did. And obviously it was this album that kind of marked the beginning with them with their touring and him becoming more theatrical and maybe
pissing off Tony Banks.
Yes. But it's that theatre that I personally love about Peter Gabriel. I really like him as a solo artist, and I like him in the band too. I really do enjoy Peter Gabriel, and I think that this album shows what he could do.
Yeah.
And I think what he had to offer on his own really exemplified his talent. And so this was the mark of him being Peter Gabriel and not Peter Gabriel from Genesis. But this is the magnum opus of them as a group. Like the 5 famous people, the famous lineup. I think this is the best. And I really did enjoy this album, which I was very pleasantly surprised about. And I think that as a concept album, it excels. So, number 4, just missing medal position. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. It's an 8 from me.
It's also my number 4.
Hey!
So there we go.
Look at that, we synced up.
Although I don't agree that it's the best of the classic lineup, clearly.
No, obviously not.
I think, yeah, I wanted this to be my number 1 so bad because I feel what you're saying. I think the concept is so ambitious. Does get a bit muddled at times when you're trying to follow along. You're like, what is this about?
Yeah.
But they kind of tie it all together by the end. The opening title track indicates a new sound.
Yeah.
And what a sound it is.
Yeah.
Just the guitar, like this really, just like I don't know. It's like the albums before this were doing this sort of mystical, fairy tale vibe, and this is like a suburban, like dark and dingy, like almost a noir vibe.
Yeah, you can feel that they set it in New York.
Yeah.
I think. It's definitely got this urban feel.
And I think it's dark and brooding, but still theatrical. It has a cool atmosphere to the whole album, and disc 1 is stacked.
Yes.
The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Carpet Crawlers, Counting Out Time, Back in NYC, In the Cage, all just so good. Disc 2 gets a little bit more experimental, a little bit more ambient. Brian Eno was involved with the making of the album, which definitely adds to the second disc's more sort of synthy, atmospheric instrumental moments. I think it's very ambitious and diverse. For the most part, is very enjoyable, and I think it's deserving of its status as a classic. I think the go-to top 2 for Genesis is Selling England by the Pound and The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I've not gone with that.
No, and nor have I.
But I still think it's worthy of all the hype. I think it's awesome. It's got a lot of attitude, which I think was missing from the earlier ones, which are a bit airy fairy, and this one's got an edge to it, which I like.
Yeah, so do I.
So yeah, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is my number 4. Second disc does let it down ever so slightly, but it's still a good second disc.
Yeah,
I think the first disc
I'm
is
with
just
you.
so stacked.
Very strong
Yeah.
for A-side. They definitely did do that. Yeah, I agree.
So number 3, medal position.
We're in bronze medal. Right. You've worked it out, right? I love Phil Collins.
yeah.
All right, let's just do that here. Right, my bronze medal goes to Genesis, the self-titled.
Okay, nice. What was my number 8? 8, yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Good album.
Yeah, it is a good album. It opens strong with Mama and That's All. Yeah, the duo of Home and Second Home by the Sea, really nice. I was actually pleasantly surprised that I got on with an instrumental track, because normally that's not my gig. But yeah, Legal Alien is it's not aged well.
No.
But putting in the time, being very forgiving, was okay. Wasn't as bad as Who Done It. I added Taking It All Too Hard. Silver Rainbow I thought was nice, and It's Gonna Get Better is also a very, very sweet way to sort of mellow out the album. It's good, it's strong, it's a 9 from me.
Wow.
But the low end of 9, I enjoyed it.
Wow.
It's a good one. And the thing is the highs are so high. Mama is so powerful. And that's
it's a fan
all.
favourite, that song.
Yeah, and That's All is good. I've had a lot of time with that. That's one of the songs that I've always kind of known. And I did enjoy the ones that I discovered, such as the Home and Second Home, Taking All Too High, Silver Rainbow. It's gonna get better. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was worthy to me. Tom disagrees.
Well, no, I like the album.
But you liked others more.
Especially the A-side.
Yeah.
So, hey, let me tell you, that's not going to be the one I'm going to have the most contention with in your top 3.
No, I know, but we'll see where that goes. We'll see where that goes.
Number 3, and unfortunately, I'm ruling out another sync-up, because my number 3 is Duke. What a surprise this was. I mean, and then there were 3, and Wind and Wuthering I liked. They were definitely a step down from the era that I liked the most.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just put Duke on. I need to get the Genesis listening done. And I sit down, Behind the Lines starts. I think, instrumental opening. And then sort of goes for about 2.5 minutes. I think, still instrumental. And Phil Collins just comes in. It's written in the book. And I'm like, oh, yes. I'm really into it. It didn't let up. The whole album is so infectious. It's really cool to me because unlike the other 80s albums, there's a hint of melancholy to this album. There's like a lot of the lyricism especially sort of comes across as dealing with a breakup. I think that opening, they sort of lead into each other, Behind the Lines and Duchess, that's brilliant. And I think the singles are great as well, Misunderstanding and Turn It On Again. I there isn't a weak track for me. I think it's a mix of the 70s adventurousness and the 80s pop sensibilities. So maybe I am predictable in the sense that I like the middle ground.
Yeah.
I like all the songs. There's an element of coherence here as well, where it all flows nicely. It plays well from start to finish. Whereas I feel like that's what puts it above the Lamb, which might be controversial. I'm not going to get any controversy with this guy's list, but
I'm a great sponge for controversy. I've just taken it all. Nothing can seem as bad.
But the Lamb, I feel like at parts, like I said, gets a bit muddled. This one, from start to finish, I enjoyed it. It's 55 minutes, feels like 35.
Yeah,
had a great time listening to it.
Yeah,
and I think it's Rutherford's best guitar album as well. I think he's got some great guitar parts.
It's a strong vibe.
So it almost landed higher, but I think there are a couple moments where the 80s-ness, there's like a lot of synths that just like, boop! And I'm just like, why are you doing that, Tony? Why are you doing that?
Oh, it caught me by surprise.
So, yeah. You know what kind of synth I mean, though?
No, I do.
It's just like this really loud, aggressive synth that just gets chucked in. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'll tell you what, the amount of times this last couple of weeks where I've listened to Behind the Lines and Duchess together as one song, and I just love them, and they are going to have a good shot of showing up in the songs. So, my number 3 is Duke. I think it's fab.
It is a great album. It is a great album. It's my number 2.
Oh no!
silver medal is due.
Oh,
yeah,
God. Oh, okay.
Gold medal is gonna be an interesting discussion, right, Duke? I'm glad we agree on it because this is obviously gonna be the last time that we've got good common ground in this video. Duke is excellent. I love it. I really genuinely have a very soft spot for this album, which I did not think I'd have going in. Duchess is an amazing song. It's a beautiful song, and shout out to my old manager Lorraine, who doesn't even know I make these videos, but she loves this song. And when I told her that I was doing Genesis, she went home and listened to Duchess, and she told me that, and she's like, I love that song. It's like one of her
Great
favourite
lyrics
songs.
to that
Yeah.
as well, yeah.
A guide vocal, little snippet is a very sweet one. Man of Our Times, Heat Hey. Turn It On Again, I forgot was on this album. I thought it was on the self-titled in my head. But yeah, it's got a place here. Very good. Alone Tonight, Cul-de-sac, Please Don't Ask, and Duke's End is a great
Yeah, all
track
the
as
songs
well.
are great. That's the thing, yeah.
It really does ride that high, and I didn't realize that I would love this era of Phil Collins Genesis as much as I do, and I did really want it to be the top album, but I had to be honest with myself. And yeah, clearly I am quite predictable. I did not want to be predictable, okay, with my gold, but we will get to it. Duke is amazing. I'm glad that we've both got it in medal position, and that is, I think, the only thing that we can cling on to keep this friendship going. We just need to hold on to that as long as we can.
No, I think we're both very open-minded and very respectful of each other's opinions.
I'm being comedic.
I know.
We both knew this would happen.
Maybe not to this extent, but...
have mercy on me, vinyl community.
Well, Sam, now you can breathe a massive sigh of relief, because my number 2 is Nursery Crime.
Yeah, well, not as relieved as I would have liked to have been.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it's not number 1.
Well, I will say, I don't know why it's at the bottom. I can't understand that. But I can understand why you wouldn't like it as much as some of the other albums, because, truthfully, it is not particularly polished. It's quite heavy compared to a lot of their other albums, and I like that. I like that heaviness.
You're the 70s guy.
I think that the musical box is just an amazing opener. I think it kicks so much ass. It's great. Great heavy parts, great quieter parts, great. I think Peter has really come into his own here. It's the first album with a classic lineup. I think For Absent Friends, which is the first song that Phil Collins sings.
Right, he's singing there.
Yeah, it's weird because he also sings a song on Selling Them by the Pound, which we'll get to. But he sounds very similar to Peter, which is quite funny.
Yeah, well, it totally slipped past me.
I think Harold the Barrel is really fun, ridiculous song, but I just love it. And I think the closing track is really beautiful as well. I think Banks and Hackett really create a glorious soundscape on that song. It's really ethereal, and I just love the vibe of this album. I think the songwriting is fantastic. The playing is great. It is a little bit too sort of, I don't want to say harsh isn't the right word, but it's a bit too theatrical and in your face for me to go to a 9. So I've been in 8 land for a while, but yeah, I think it's really good, and yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know. I don't think many people would have it above the likes of Foxtrot and The Lamb, even the most diehard fans of the classic lineup. I just think this is fantastic. I have a great time listening to it, and it is much more my kind of music than yours.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like this album a lot. I respect your opinion. I hope you can respect mine.
Of course.
And
wouldn't be any point doing this if we didn't.
I think Nursery Crime is fantastic, but it sticks at an 8.
Sam disagrees.
I think it would be nice to have, because I really love the musical box and Harold the Barrel and The Fountain. Maybe one more banger, and it would get to a 9. But those are the ones for me.
Right.
So.
Well, I'm just glad that it's not your gold. I can't give you such a reprieve.
No.
So now it's my time to die on a hill I have less confidence about dying on. I'm not going to say that Invisible Touch is like it lives up to what you have to say about the ones that you love. But I just had too much fun listening to this album to not put it at the top. I wanted Duke to be at the top just to say I didn't put Invisible Touch at the top and to like dismiss anyone that thinks that, oh yeah, Sam would put Invisible Touch at number one. But okay, Sam put Invisible Touch at number one, okay? Invisible Touch, the self-titled. The titular song is amazing. What fun to have on it. Tonight is just, it's powerful. I think it's reminiscent of Mama and I really liked it. It's not the strongest song on the album, but yeah, it's brilliant. Land of Confusion is just a really powerful song, and I just think that it kicking the ass of the society that they were living in. It's a powerful message, and the music video is so like visually disturbing because it was using spitting image puppets, which was a popular show at the time, and it's kind of tried to make a comeback recently, but I don't think it's really going to succeed in the same way as it did back then. But I just think that they had a powerful message with that, and I thought it was really good. In Too Deep, I don't care what you say, it tugs at the heartstrings to me. I just love it, and it's comforted me a lot in some lower points in my life. I've had a lot of time with a lot of the songs from this album, and that is why I could not rank it lower than the top. I'm so sorry. The B-side is the rest of the album is not strong. I will attest to that. But I just had so much fun. And I saved Anything She Does and Domino Medley in there, and throwing it all away is just one of the best. Spoiler alert, it's gonna come up in songs. Where it's gonna come, I can't possibly say, but I just love that song, and it's another song that's been there for me. And that's why I have to put Invisible Touch at number one, because even though I'd never heard it in full, there's just so much in it that has been in my life for longer than I can remember, especially Invisible Touch, the titular song. It's just one of those songs that I've known before I knew it was Genesis. And I adore it, and I really enjoy Land of Confusion. In Too Deep and Throwing It All Away just really have a special place in my heart. And if we did this video a little bit down the line and I have more time with Duke, which I do think is a better put together album and has a stronger sound, it's just hitting nostalgia. The nostalgia gets it to number one for me, and Sammy 80s guy just had to come in and go, you can't rank Invisible Touch lower, because you just can't. Not now, not yet. Let's come back to it and see where I'm at. Right now, I just have to be honest with myself and say that I love listening to Invisible Touch.
It's another 9?
It is another 9. Nothing gets to a 10.
Well, I think you probably enjoyed this slightly more than I did, but it's not that much of a gulf. Because I've only got 1 9, but I had a load of 8s.
Yeah.
And I started a lot lower than you did as well. But my number 1, I mean, you talk about being predictable. Pretty much everybody I've talked to has predicted this being my number 1.
Myself included.
Yourself included. And you know what? I don't care. Selling England by the Pound is an undeniable album, in my opinion. I think
I will agree with you.
I think
I'll say it's good.
It's got a great opener, Dancing with a Moonlit Night. It sort of starts a cappella with just Peter singing, and he is sounding great on this album.
Yeah.
The best. I think overall, Phil is the better singer, but I think Peter has so much character and personality to his voice that I really attach to. I think that song comes together so nicely. This A-side is just absolutely stupidly good, because then you get I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe, which is it's got the more commercial sound, but it's also got Peter Gabriel messing around. Yeah, but it's also got Peter Gabriel going, which is great. I mean, more of that. But you know what I mean? It's the mix.
Yeah.
It's the mix of the silliness and the theatricality, but also a more commercial sound. I think Firth the Fifth was one of the few songs that I knew going in. That iconic piano part is just brilliant, and then it's got a guitar solo and a flute solo. Oh, it's just so good. And then More Fool Me. I mentioned For Absent Friends. This is a Phil Collins vocal, and it's bloody beautiful.
It's lovely.
It's so beautiful.
Didn't realise that was Phil. That explains why I liked it.
Yeah. But he still sort of sounds like Peter a little bit, just a little bit more tender maybe. And that A-side is 10 out of 10. Brilliant. Unstoppable. B-side, not as good. However, it does have the cinema show at the end.
Yeah.
And that song
is
absolutely tremendous. I think it's a perfect closer. Again, Hackett is brilliant on it. Great lyrics, talking about Romeo and Juliet comparisons and stuff. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. I think this is their crowning achievement. I think it's one of my 5 favourite prog rock albums. Not your genre, I understand.
Yeah.
Um,
It's no, I'm agreeing though. It's
Yeah.
definitely got merit, and I said I didn't dislike
Yeah,
the
yeah.
album just because it was ranked quite low.
it was only 6, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It has enough wonder, mysticism, melody, and impressive playing to go around, and in my opinion, is their creative peak. And more importantly than that, I just have a great time listening to it. And
yeah.
I think the songs, because I think as much as I like, I'm like Foxtrot, Supper's Ready is more, yes, this is impressive. But when I listen to Further Fifth, and when I listen to the cinema show, it gets me emotionally.
Yeah.
And I think that is what separates this album from the other albums of the year. It's a 9. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's my number 1. Sorry to be so
Yeah.
predictable.
Well, we've both been kind of predictable. I think if anyone knows us at this point in the series, they would have guessed that our respective number 1s would have been there. And I really didn't want to be that guy. I did not want Invisible Touch to be number 1.
Yeah.
And here we
Well,
are.
there are albums like Trick of the Tail and like Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, which we'll see in the songs video, based on the best songs, might have been my number 1. But I think Selling England by the Pound has the cohesion. And,
Yeah.
and same with Nursery Crime and Duke. That's why they're the top 3 for me, is that they're the ones that straight through are consistent. And
Oh, yeah,
I'd
Nursery
rather-
Crime's definitely consistent. Give you that.
I mean,
But Duke is consistently good.
Invisible Touch was consistent in how it sent me to sleep. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for joining a
Yeah,
very,
thank you.
very contentious
Oh,
episode.
yes.
I'm sure me and Sam can recover from this.
Yeah, whether you and I,
yeah.
me and the Final
Yeah.
Beauty, will recover is yet to see. This might be my last episode.
Nah. Even if they don't want you on, you're still coming on. I guess we can reveal now that the next artist we're going to be doing, it's not going to be too soon because I have a lot of videos lined up.
Yeah,
We're both
yeah.
busy. Pretenders is going to be the next one.
Yeah.
11 albums to rank. So we'll be here again, probably in a few weeks to a month, something like
Yeah.
that. That's going to be fun. Hopefully not as divisive as this
Yeah.
one. But we did sync up on one album. So that was
We
that was
did.
fun.
That's more
Yeah.
than I thought we'd
Yeah.
get. So,
So-
yeah.
And a few albums we were in a similar ballpark, like Duke and Trespass were
Yeah.
in a similar.
But we've definitely not disagreed with each other as much as
No.
we have here. But hey, at least
Yeah.
our format's not going to start getting stale now because
Exactly,
you know
yeah.
that we can disagree with each other
So
and still have fun.
plenty of videos with Sam on the channel. We've done the Beatles and Elliott Smith. Don't watch that one. Roxy Music and,
Unless you want more reason to hate me.
and Crowded
Roxy
House,
Music. Yep, Talk.
Slow Dive.
Slow Dive.
A lot of our favourites.
Depeche
But
Mode.
you know, sometimes like with Depeche Mode, like with this one, Genesis, we both know some stuff and we go in not blind. We know some songs, but
Yep.
album-wise, we go in blind to sort of explore and discuss and just have a good time.
Yeah.
And I think we did, despite all our differences. I
Oh,
think it
yeah.
was a fun recording. I've never seen you quite as animated as your Invisible Touch review.
Oh no, I think I would like to say that I like the Talk albums are ranked highly more than I like Invisible
Well,
Touch.
we'll see in the end of year. That's something we can announce quickly. End of the year.
Oh, yeah?
In December, we're planning
Look
to
around at
do
Christmas.
So we're going to do favourite Christmas songs. We're also going to do favourite albums and favourite songs that we've covered in videos. So
Yes.
that's going to be fun. Sort of festive content for you.
Yeah, something to look forward to
so
at the end of the year.
Thank you very much for joining once again. If you sat through all of it, give it a like.
Yeah, and stick around for the songs.
And give us a sub. Me a sub. You're not.
Yeah, no, I have no stake in it. So if you don't want to sub to Tom because of me, don't worry. I'm not on my channel as
Plenty
much
of solo videos. Yeah.
Yeah, and other people to like. You know,
Yeah.
it's fine. There's plenty more fish in the sea.
Right. Thank you very much for joining, and hopefully we'll catch you for the songs.